All what you saw was shot on this $259 lens, and this might be the smartest 85mm lens you can buy for the L-mount system right now, or maybe the biggest waste of money, because at this price something has to give. And after shooting real work with it, I found a few surprises I genuinely wasn't expecting. Never buy a cheap 85mm lens until you see what this one actually does. An 85mm lens can either make your footage look cinematic and expensive, or flat and forgettable. There's really an in-between. Today I'm reviewing the AstrHori 85 F1.8 Mark II for L-mount, and within minutes of picking it up, it felt strangely familiar. There's a reason it looks like something you've seen before, and an even bigger reason it's priced the way it is. By the end of this video, you know exactly who this lens is for, who should stay far away from it, and whether saving money here actually costs you anything in real world shooting. Most of what you're seeing was shot on the Lumix S1 Mark II. Quick one before we go any further: if you enjoy real world reviews like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It genuinely helps the channel. I've left links in the description if you want to check current pricing. But here's the problem: an 85mm lens on an L-mount usually isn't cheap. An 85mm is one of those focal lenses that never really goes out of style. Portraits, interviews, detail shots, even certain types of cinematic B-roll all benefit from this kind of a lens. You get clean compression, natural looking faces, and backgrounds that fall far away without feeling forced. For wedding photographers especially, 85mm has always been a go-to because it separates subjects beautifully while keeping skin tones and proportions looking just right. And for video, it gives that intimate cinematic look without needing extreme lighting setups. On L-mount though, good 85mm options aren't exactly cheap. That's why lenses like this one here exist in the first place. The first thing that hit me when I unboxed the AstrHori 85mm f1.8 was this feeling of, have I seen this before? And honestly, I think most people would think the same thing. My first thought was 7 artisans, and that's not accidental. While AstrHori says the brands are separate, the design language here is impossible to miss. Same aperture design, same layout design, similar feel. Since I've never personally used 7 artisan 85 f1.8, this was exactly a good chance to experience this style of lens. I've used other 7 artisan lenses before, like 24mm f1.8 in L-mount, which I reviewed on this channel, and their Infinite Cine series Cine lenses, which I genuinely like. I still have the set of, I think, 16mm, 35mm, and 85mm. I'll link my review of the 16mm Cine lens down below. I hope to do a review where I compare all the lenses and for you guys. So make sure you're subscribed. And for context, I used to shoot on the AstrHori 85 f1.4 back when I was on the A-Sony mount. I really enjoyed that lens, but when I switched to the Lumix L-mount system, I had to sell it. And the sale of my A7 IV along with that 85mm Aurora lens basically funded me switching to L-mount camera. So the question actually became, is jumping from f1.8 to f1.4 really that necessary, or is f1.8 enough in real world use? Now, before we answer that, let's talk about how this lens actually feels to shoot with. This is usually where cheap lenses give themselves away, and honestly, the AstrHori doesn't feel cheap in hand. It feels solid, it feels premium. It weighs about 445.8 grams without the caps on, and about 48.8 grams with everything on, based on my own weight test. Let me just take off the caps and the sun hood. Yeah, on the Lumix S1ii, which I used to film this video, it balances nicely. It is slightly on the heavier side for 85mm f1.8 though, but that weight actually helps when shooting handheld video. The setup feels planted instead of front-heady. Let me just get my other camera, the S1ii Mark II. And the focus ring has a very nice textured pattern, which I really like. Your fingers don't slip easily, even if you're moving fast or shooting in colder conditions. There is some resistance in the focus ring, but personally, I got used to it after a day of shooting with this lens. The aperture ring, on the other hand, runs from f1.8 down to f16 and then A, and it's the click. That's great for video because you can change exposure without visibly jumping, which can make the your shot shaky. And if you prefer click apertures, you won't get that here. And there's no switch to change between the two. I also wish there was an aperture lock, so that's something to note. Get an AF manual focus switch and a custom button, both of which work as expected. The custom button is plastic, which does raise a small durability concern for me long term, but that's just something to keep in mind. And if I unmount the lens, there is no weather sealing here, but you have the contact point and a USB-C port for firmware update. And the front filter thread is 62mm, which is affordable, as filters that are smaller are more affordable than filters that are larger, like the 82mm or 72 or even 77. And the minimum focusing distance is 80 centimeters. So this isn't a macro lens, but for portraits and detail shots, it's perfectly fine. For events and portrait work, especially when you're picking out faces in the crowd, the subject separation and fall off always look really, really nice. It'll make your work look better and cinematic. Yeah. Now, if you're into pixel peeping, something I don't really like, if you stop the lens down from f1.8 to f2.8, chromatic aberration and fringing are mostly gone. Color ranging and contrast are good, and the overall look will feel familiar if you've used lenses at 7 Artisans before. Comparing shots with my 7 Artisans 24mm and f1.8, the colors do match very closely. Bokeh is where this lens actually does a better job than expected. Backgrounds melt away, especially when you give the subject some distance from the background. Those 11 aperture blades help keep highlights round and smooth. If image quality is your biggest concern, let me save you some suspense. This lens delivers more than its price suggests, but it's not without its flaws. Now, one thing I really wanted to test with this lens was focus breathing, because on an 85mm lens like this, bad breathing can completely ruin a shot, especially if you're doing focus pulls during interviews or your cinematic B-roll. Now, for autofocus isn't the fastest I've ever used, especially for photography. But for video, which is what I mainly shoot, it's been good enough. I didn't run into any real issues using this in practical situations. Now, at this price point and considering the image quality you're getting from this lens, I'll personally rather have slightly slower autofocus than bad looking images. And once you pair this with the S1ii Mark II or the S1R2 or most Lumix full frame cameras, the overall experience feels very well balanced. But here's the moment that made me pause, because it completely changed how I see this lens. This is where the real conversation starts. Do you actually lose anything meaningful by choosing a lens like this, by spending your money on a lens like this, instead of spending 2 or 3 times more? Because on paper, even in real world use, this lens does a lot of things right. Yes, there's no weather sealing, and yes, autofocus isn't class leading, but then you look at the images you take with this lens, you look at the price, and the trade-offs start to feel very reasonable. At the time of this recording, this lens is selling for around $329 or £259 with a discount. That's extremely cheap for an autofocus 85mm f1.8 with an aperture ring in L-mount. It actually might be the cheapest option available right now. Paired with my Lumix cameras, this lens makes a lot of sense. The camera's image quality alone, color science and stabilization help smooth out some of the lens's weaknesses. Handheld work feels stable, portraits look clean, it's not trying to be a premium portrait lens, it's not pretending to be one either. By the way, quick thing for you guys, this is easily one of the fastest chargers I have ever used. It's the Sabrent 252-watt 8-port USB PD 3.0 charger with color LCD display and paired with a Thunderbolt 4 cable. It's been a crazy reliable one. I've literally charged my 25,000 milliamp power bank from 0 to 100 in record time. You get 4 USB-C ports and 4 USB-A ports, a Kensington lock slot for extra peace of mind, and a function button that lets you cycle through each port to see voltage, current, temperature, and even the estimated time left to charge your device. This charges everything: your phone, your camera batteries, your laptops, your wireless mics, your gimbals, just name it. At this point, I don't even bother with multiple charging heads anymore. I've packed them up. This one hub replaces all of that and keeps my desk and my charging station organized and ready to shoot. I've also been using their 4-in-1 multi-card reader attached under my desk. It supports micro SD, CF Express Type B, compact flash, and UHS 2 SD cards, which makes backing up footage real quick. Now I'm back to this lens. This lens isn't trying to beat premium glass. It's trying to give creators an affordable entry into proper 85mm portraits and video work, which is what I do, without feeling punished for saving money. And in that sense, it succeeds. It's a clear improvement from AstrHori's first version and a smart way to establish the brand by refining an existing design instead of starting from scratch. And my final touch on this lens is that the AstrHori 85mm f1.8 isn't perfect, but it doesn't need to be. It's solid, it looks good, and most importantly, it's accessible. I've been shooting on a 75mm f2 for a while, and even though that lens has served me well, having an 85mm f1.8 gives me that extra separation and a bit more flexibility in low light. Would I recommend this lens to everyone? Yes, if you're looking for something affordable, you're on a budget building an L-mount kit, or just want a capable 85mm without spending too much money, this lens is absolutely worth considering. I've been using it and enjoying it, and I've seen worse performance from more expensive well-known brands. Drop a comment and tell me, if you had to choose just one lens for portraits and interviews on L-mount, what would it be? And tell me why. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like because it really helps the channel. I've left links in the description below if you want to check out the lens for yourself, and if you want to see more real world gear reviews like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's a Filmmaker. Thanks for watching. God bless and peace.